Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. The weather is getting colder.
It's snowing in my house right now.
Oh, that's right. All that snow went up to you.
Yeah.
Dang. How was
I
that?
mean, it's not gonna stick.
Sure.
It's just gonna like make our porch look pretty for a minute, and then but it's not gonna get anywhere like in terms of grass.
Did you have any funsies?
A little bit. We went outside for just a minute. I mean, it's really not enough to even make a snowball. It's just like a dusting right now. So,
Well, this is episode 280 of the HooperCast movie hour, everybody.
it is.
So welcome to the show. We are everywhere. We'll tell you some places later, some specifics, but you can find us wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can watch and listen to other places as well, maybe better places. We are on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and of course on Patreon. So look for
Yes.
us in those places. Not a lot of film news has cropped up for this past week. The only thing, I didn't pack the link in my digital suitcase,
Sure.
but so we talked last week or the week before about Mads Mikkelsen being
Hmm.
like credibly rumored to replace Johnny Depp in Fantastic Beasts 3 as Grindelwald, and I believe it's been officially confirmed that that is the casting.
Hmm. That has been confirmed.
So that's just really just a follow up. We have literally no additional thoughts on that other than
Right.
cool. I think we stated our case last time that would be awesome, and that
Yep.
would, well, in my case, it would move the needle a little bit. I think Dustin said you went from a 0% interest in the film to like a 1.1% interest.
Yeah. Yep. It did not spike very much.
Yeah. Well, oh well. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, not a lot of film news to talk about, so I figured we'll just go ahead and take this first half of the show and just talk about a couple of things, namely my own viewing of season 4 of The Crown.
Ah, sweet.
So The Crown, I've spoken about this on the show before. The Crown is a Netflix series. It was developed, created by Peter Morgan. And the interesting thing about The Crown is that it has multiple casts.
Hmm.
So, it may like, it began with like Claire Foy and Matt Smith and like John Lithgow and some other people, and then in the third season they turned over the cast, essentially because they had a big time jump. They jump ahead like 15 years, and they were just like, we're not gonna have these people playing this family,
Yeah.
older and older and older. That's just kind of not what. Just it's just a creative choice they made.
Sure.
Yeah, so created and principally written by Peter Morgan, but the studio, if you want to know, is Sony Pictures Television. And is this? Yeah, sorry, this is developed from his own drama film, The Queen, which is that 2006 film starring Helen Mirren, I believe it was. Yeah, Helen Mirren. And was that developed from a book? I just want to be accurate. I don't know if it was.
Mm.
Um, uh, I don't, I don't know. It just says written by Peter Morgan. Did he just straight up write that? Well, anyways, it's a great show. So I've talked about it on our show before. Like I said, this is season 4. And we do know it's one of those shows. You'll like this, Dustin. They know when they're going to end it. They're doing 6 seasons, and then that's going to be it. So
Good.
we've just had the 4th one released a few weeks ago. We finished watching it over Thanksgiving weekend, and I would give this season 4 stars.
Mm.
I think The Crown has been a consistently well-made show, and well acted,
Mm.
well written, and just well constructed show. I checked out like public reaction to the show this time
Mhm.
around, and there was people like, because like we're on Twitter now, so like Connor underscore Dempsey. But if I was on Twitter
Shameless.
and I was just like, what's going on? Because it was trending or something. I was like, oh, is it trending because people are liking it? And there was like people who were just like, I can't believe people think we care this much about the royal family to, trying to make them look sympathetic. I was like, whatever. It's just a
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yep.
I think I made some veiled jab at people that you'll still have. Well, this is anatomically accurate. I think I said something like you'll still have a penis after the show is over. Like you don't have to rail against this show just to show how manly you are. Like we don't care about
Right.
the royals. I don't either, man. I like good characters though, and and
Hmm.
and that's something to address with this show. This show is also being uh I think it was the brother of Princess Diana who is principally raising the charge that the show is not factually accurate.
Mm.
This is fictional to a large extent, he says, and that is something that people ought to know. Um, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing: the series covers a lot of a long span of time from the death of King George and Elizabeth's ascension to the throne through a lot of periods in time. The Kennedy assassination, and of course now we're into when Charles marries Diana Spencer, and apartheid, and the prime minister term of Margaret Thatcher was introduced in this series, and then they're going all the way through like the early 2000s, and then in the final two seasons. So. I think what everyone needs to remember if they watch this show is these are characters. I mean, like they're real people. Like these people exist. But always when you watch something that's not a documentary, and even sometimes when you're watching a documentary,
Yeah.
you're being told a story, and you're being told a story through a specific lens from people who have a point of view and something to say. And you just gotta remember that, I guess. Even with the social dilemma, Dustin, I mean, like, as factual as the things in that documentary are, I wouldn't say that's a straight up, like, here's the entire truth.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So I maintain that The Crown is consistently well made. So if anyone has not gotten onto it and was on the fence, I can tell you 4 seasons in, it's been worth it. They are turning the cast over. This was the final season for Olivia Colman and Helena Bonham Carter, Tobias Menzies. But I can't remember anyone else off the top of my head. The casting has been announced for the final 2 seasons. I'll get to that in a minute. But I think that I'm talking more about the atmosphere around the show than the season itself. I don't know what to tell you. I've talked about the content of the show quite enough. I mean, again, the cast is great. It's just really well made. It's 50, 60 minute long episodes, and I can watch them without falling asleep. And because the pace is done, it doesn't beat you over the head with exposition. You just pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing that I would say confuses me about the show is that sometimes I get lost in the historical context. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I think when you're as young as we are and you're trying to watch something that took place before you were born, you really have to rely on the filmmaker's point of view for how you're supposed to interpret this event.
Yeah.
Like unless you lived through it and you remember how it was. Like it's not until we start to see a lot of shows that deal with like 9/11
Hmm.
and like, specifically like grade school kids who saw it on television like we did, where we'll go, okay, well, I remember, and that wasn't exactly my experience. But right now, we
Right.
don't have the benefit of having been alive during a lot of these events.
Yeah.
I didn't see the royal wedding of Prince Charles, Prince of Wales. Although you can watch the entire thing on YouTube, I found out.
I'm sure you can.
It sounds not boring as shit. Um, where was I going with that point? I guess I would say that can be hard, but you would know that about yourself as a viewer more than I could possibly know it about you.
Mhm.
You know if this is your genre or not. So it's really well made, and I'm really pleased with the constant quality of The Crown. The article I have about the next season with the casting. So the person playing Elizabeth in the final two seasons is Imelda Staunton,
Okay.
who people would know as Dolores Umbridge from the Harry Potter movies,
Hmm.
which I think is good casting. This is an article on Cinema Blend I have, and it's just 6 things that we know about the Netflix series, about season 5 and onward. So it's going to premiere in 2022. I think they said there were 6 days left on their shooting schedule for this season when
Mm.
COVID hit. And
Mm.
so, but they were almost finished, but they just had to change that final week of, oh, okay, crap, that was nipped the tail end of them. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
of course assuming, yeah, let's see, won't see the show's 5th season for 2 years, which is customary for the show considering the habit of replacing the cast every 2 seasons. In July 2020, it was reported The Crown season 5 wouldn't return to Netflix till 2022. And based on the release dates, it probably won't be until late, like November or December. Um, it's supposed to get into production in June of 2021. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
So that could affect things a little bit. So the new cast. So yeah, we've got Imelda Staunton for Queen Elizabeth. Who's okay? So we've got Elizabeth Debicki is going to be joining and playing Princess Diana. People remember her from the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think what was she just in that you liked, Dustin? God,
Uh,
man, I can't remember what it was, but we were talking about it recently. Crap, I don't remember.
look it up.
Yeah, if you look it up, you'll see it. But she was in The Great Gatsby. She was just in Tenet. But I like Elizabeth Debicki, and she the girl they cast to play Diana in this one looked a lot like her, and I think Elizabeth Debicki is a good choice to be playing an older Diana. They're jumping ahead. This series ends in 1990, I think it is, and
Mm.
Princess Diana died in 97. So I
Yep.
think they're jumping ahead to 97. I think that the season is going to deal with, obviously it's going to deal with
Gotcha.
her death. So it's not as big of a time jump as the other seasons were, like, a decade and a half or so, but it's still enough to where, okay, they're noticeably older, and that's just,
Sure.
So she's going to be Diana. We've got Dominic West playing Prince Charles. Okay, that's cool. Here was a big one, though. Jonathan Pryce be playing Prince Philip. Jonathan Pryce, of course, doing well right now. He did like a season and a half of Game of Thrones as the High Sparrow, which was a really treated performance from him. He just had a really great turn on the two popes in that film with Anthony Hopkins.
Hmm.
The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, the Terry Gilliam movie that finally got made. After that cursed one, they
Yep.
finally. It's funny about that. The people who made Lost in La Mancha about how that production just totally failed.
Mm.
They now have made a production, a documentary about that film finally
About that.
getting made. Yeah, they got to make a follow up about it.
Awesome.
So he's going to play the Duke of Edinburgh, and he's a good choice. I love it. He doesn't really look like him, but Jonathan Pryce is a tremendous actor.
Mm.
We've got Leslie Manville playing Princess Margaret. I don't know that much about her. Yeah, and the people who've been playing Princess Margaret have been killer. So we've had Helen Bonham Carter for 2 seasons, and before that we had 2 seasons of Vanessa Kirby, and that was
Mm.
also really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was going to be done after season 5, but now it's done after season 6. So the rest of it's just speculation about when will it pick up. Anyway, yeah, good show. The Crown is strong as always, and oh my God, I didn't even mention Gillian Anderson playing
Mm.
Margaret Thatcher. Gillian Anderson, who I have since learned is like American and English dialect, bi-dialectical or something, I think it's called, where she
Huh.
is American, but she grew up overseas and she moved to like Illinois and then like lives overseas. And she's one of those people whose accent will change based on who she's talking to. She's
Gotcha.
doing an interview with Netflix UK about this show, and then we watched another one with Jimmy Kimmel where she sounds way more American. It's just she's one of those people who slow ramps up to her role and slow ramps down, and kind of. So she's tremendous as Margaret Thatcher. I think Diana. I think the girl. God, I don't have her name in front of me. I suck. But Gillian Anderson of the X-Files, really really good as Margaret Thatcher, and of course the cast is just always great. So that's The Crown. If you've been looking for an excuse to check it out, check it out. Sweet. You got time, and it's worth it for sure. So
nice.
Geez. I just talked a lot. Do you want to go ahead and hit the break, and then we'll talk about some movies?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to do anything before we do the break?
No, I'm good.
No?
Let's break it up.
We'll break it up.
Break me off a piece of that ad content.
Yeah. Of course, if you're listening on any of the regular podcast platforms or watching the first half of the show on YouTube, there are commercial-free versions of the show and full video versions of the show over on the Patreon page, which is obviously patreon.com/HooperCast. You could have messily Googled our show and the word Patreon, and you would still find it. So I feel strange giving you an exact URL because the internet makes it real easy to find things, especially if your name is super unique like ours. So patreon.com/HooperCast is where you find us. We've got a couple of participation tiers there for your viewing and paying pleasure.
Yes.
So go check those out. In the meantime, though, we're going to hit the break regardless. And when we get back, we're going to talk about a couple of movies. I want to hear about The Murder on the Orient Express. And Sweet. I want to tell people about The Impossible, which I just saw for the second time again.
Sweet.
Again, which was my second time.
Gotcha.
Back in a minute, HooperCast Movie Hour. And we're back. So cool. If you're listening to this half of the show, congratulations. You're not just on YouTube. So good on you. Okay. Which means you've contributed to the show in some way.
Yes.
We appreciate your listenership. All right. Dustin, I found, this is not quite related, but I have to tell you this.
Okay.
I found a gray hair in my beard.
Uh-oh.
And my wife was looking at it, like, peeking through the brush, looking at it. And she was like, that's like a split hair. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever, big deal. She goes, no, it's like split 5 or so times.
Oh.
May I study this? So she comes back with a pair of tweezers.
Yeah.
Yanks this, like, thick root out of my face.
Yep.
Immediately drops it. That's just like before the show.
Of course.
We're in the bathroom, and she was like, "Oh, where'd it go?" And I was like, "Smooth move, professor." And so she's looking on like our, light tan tile, trying to find this clump of white hairs that are spindled together. Yeah. And she's checking me like, "Don't move," and like checking my arms and stuff, like you might have leaned on it. I'm like, all right, whatever. Good luck looking for this hair. She comes out like a minute later, goes, I found it. And she's got it. She's got it in between these tweezers. So I have like these. I have this pair of tweezers here that's like, that has like a little magnifying glass on it.
Okay.
So I was get the things out, and I'm looking at it, and like, wow, it's like a thick gray fiber, white fiber or whatever, and it's just, it really is like one thick hair that just like. And just split off and kind of like twisted around. Wow. And it still hurts where she pulled it out. And I was like, whoa, that's wild. And then she dropped it again. And she's like, what do we do? Like, do we throw it away? Do you want to keep it? I'm like, why would I keep it?
Right.
I'm some sick weirdo who keeps his gray hairs. I was like, throw it away. So she's walking to the trash can, falls out of the thing again. She's like, oh, I dropped it again. I was like, you're never going to find it. He goes, oh, I found it. Here it is. And it's so big that it can cast a visible shadow. It can be found with the naked eye. I know, it's crazy. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'm just gonna be growing rope out of my face
I was gonna say maybe
pretty
you're
soon.
turning into a spider, and that was just web. That was webbing.
And then she sent me this picture from this story from like Meet Charlotte, this big huntsman spider that found a home. And she shows me a picture, and it's huge. It's like no one, unless you're watching the video, you can't see this, but like, about the width of those headphones over there on my piano.
Oh God.
And and it's just on the wall. And she was like, "Guess where this is?" And I was like,
Australia.
"Australia." She was like, "That's exactly right." I was like, "It's always Australia."
It's always Australia.
Look
At this gigantic animal. Where does it habitate?
Look at this huge insect.
Yes.
Where is this? Oh, it's
has to be Australia.
That horrible place.
Yes. That place that everyone wants to go until they find out what's there.
It's like Australia. I had a coworker who honeymooned there. And I was like, "How was it, dude?" And he was like, "It was great, like outdoor and everything." And I kept thinking like, see, that sounds cool. But then like you look at like, regular rural or urban Australia or whatever. And I'm just seeing videos of like huge spiders, like, crawling out of steering columns. And, like, anacondas and, centipedes that are like the size of a hot dog.
That's a big no for me. Big no for me.
Absolutely not.
The more legs it has, the more death it deserves.
All right. Well, speaking of death, Dustin.
Ooh, nice
deserved or undeserved, I would like you to tell me about the murder on the Orient Express.
Yes. The murder on the Orient Express. I was leaving room for the trailer to be inserted and then come back, and I couldn't find a way to come back from a trailer because I don't know where it ended. Murder on the Orient Express. This is actually from 2017, so it's a few years old.
Yeah.
I always intended to see it when it came out. Just never got around to it. Pretty low on the totem pole of I need to see this. But the thing is, so it's based on an Agatha Christie novel, which I love Agatha Christie. I think, Poirot is a great detective, and I really, like I said, I wanted to see this, and I'd seen the original, and the original is great.
What year was the original made?
Oh, you had to put me on the spot.
Oh,
I can't remember, but it does star Sean Connery.
I was
recently departed Sean Connery.
I thought it was maybe the 60s, sometime in the 60s.
It is, hold up, 1974.
Oh.
Yep, 1974. So this one's 2017. And this one famously stars a whole bevy of
A-listers,
big name A-listers. Yeah. So you have, first of all, Kenneth Branagh plays Poirot. Mm-hmm. He also directed this film. So he gave himself the meatiest role, as you do. It also stars Daisy Ridley, Leslie Odom Jr. It stars Michelle Pfeiffer and Johnny Depp and Josh Gad, and the list goes on. So I know I'm forgetting about 500 big names.
One thing.
Yes.
Josh Gad does not seem like he belongs in this film.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right.
No. You can't have Johnny Depp and Willem Dafoe in a movie and then and Josh Gad. Like, remember that guy that played LeFou? He's in this too.
You think like you can't picture like Josh Gad and Willem Dafoe like chatting on set about like the NFL or something.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you talk to Josh Gad about?
I lost my draft, my pick, my brackets all. It's in tatters. Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah,
right.
I like Donovan McNabb. I don't think he's in the. I think that was years ago. I think he's been retired for like 15 years.
That's fine. That's about how much Josh Gad probably knows about
I
football.
just remember a Chunky Soup commercial with his mom.
Yes.
All right.
So in the film, Kenneth Branagh plays Hercule Poirot. He's a detective, and he stumbles upon a mystery. The mystery being all these people are on a train, and there's a murder that happens. The question is, who committed the murder? They obviously are still on the train. So Poirot begins to systematically interview and try to figure out who committed this horrible crime, all while not also tipping that person off and getting them to flee or whatever. Or more importantly, kill again.
Kill more people.
So, yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. Murder on the Orient Express is a detective story that is good, not great. And this film does not improve the story overall. It is just as good as this story could be. But like also knocked down a couple tiers because some of the actors are out of place and some of the meat I feel like is taken out because so here's the thing. I mentioned Kenneth Branagh gave himself the meatiest part. By that, I mostly just mean the part with the most screen time because the problem here is we never really get to know Hercule Poirot on a deep level. He's our detective. He's our protagonist. So we root for him and we side with him and we want him to succeed. But who is he and what makes him tick and, you know, what's his story and where does he come from and all of these things we don't really know. And the thing is, you don't have to, right? Like there's obviously a few schools of thought here. Like how much do you need to know about your protagonist? Well, you need to know enough to root for them, but you don't need to know so much superfluous information that you could like write a paper on them, like their biography. You just need to be able to root for them. Maybe I err on the side that I want to know a little more about my protagonist. Now, the antagonist, that's a different story. But the protagonist, I feel like I want to know them inside and out and what makes them tick and why do they do what they do and what drives them. And I need to know that beyond just what is their goal, because a lot of characters have goals.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the goals can be great. But until I feel like I really know them or are, you know, invested in them as a character, you know, I feel like there's just this automatic disconnect. And so this is why I like Sherlock Holmes. And particularly, we talked about this recently when we reviewed Enola Holmes, that the BBC Sherlock is so good. Why? Partially because it does go back to Conan Doyle's original stories and really draws a great three-dimensional character of who Sherlock Holmes is, but also because we get to know enough about his background and enough about what drives him to be the best and do these things, that you really begin to feel for him beyond just, I want to solve this mystery so that the murderer doesn't kill again, right? Like I can instantly graft onto that, but unless I really know you and know what's at stake for you personally, there's a disconnect. And I think that's the problem. And I have not read the original Agatha Christie novel, so I don't know if this story, if that problem exists in the original story, but I do know that it is this way in the 1974 film as well. I feel like Hercule Poirot is a little bit of I'm just detached from him because I feel like he does. I don't have enough information to know why he does what he does, and of course I root for him, but I don't know him, and I think that that's a fundamental flaw of these two adaptations. Again, maybe it's that way in the book, maybe it's not, but then, like I said, the mystery itself, it's okay. It's good, not great. And so starting here is weird because there's a few Poirot novels. In fact, there's a sequel to this that Kenneth Branagh directed that's coming out or was supposed to come out in December of this year and has been postponed. And it's called Death on the Nile.
Right.
Has Gal Gadot and a few other people. I don't know, John C. Reilly maybe. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, I have to look that up now
because weird casting.
Because I don't think it's John C. Reilly now that I think about it. So
I feel bad for that guy because that guy was in wasn't he like Gangs in New York? Like that guy,
yeah.
That guy's in has serious roles, but his comedy career and just the silly nature of the sound of his voice, it just makes it so hard to
to latch on. It is not him. It was Russell Brand. That's who I'm thinking of. Somebody equally. Well, not equally. I'll just say more irrelevant than John C. Reilly. But it also has Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Kenneth Branagh, of course, Letitia Wright, Anyway, I mean, it's got a
That's a
decent
good
cast.
cast. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so the thing is like I want to see that because I am a sucker for detective stories. Like I love a good whodunit. That's why I really wanted to see Knives Out. Not a big fan of Ryan Johnson anymore, but I wanted to see Knives Out because I like a good whodunit. So I want to see Death on the Nile, but the problem remains like I don't have that much interest in seeing another Poirot story because I don't know Hercule Poirot. I don't feel like I know him enough to be excited to spend another 2 hours with him. And again, I think that's the fundamental flaw here. So the actors, they all do a fine job, and of course, some are better than others, but they do fine with what they're given. The problem is none of them are really given much. It's almost like the way I would describe the structure of this thing very quickly is that you have the mystery that they set up, and then like I said, Perot has to interview everybody, so everybody gets like a scene with Perot where they get to talk about like, well, I'm originally from New York and blah blah blah, and they get to tell like he's like, why are you on this train? And they're like, well, I'm trying to go over here,
That's
and
probably
and
everybody's audition page.
yeah, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
like everything you need to know
Here's
about a
my
character
character. Yeah.
in a paragraph. And so they all get this juicy little monologue, and they get to be, opposite Kenneth Branagh,
Yeah.
which I'm sure is an honor and
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And so the structure of it's a little frustrating because it becomes repetitive. And again, those actors, some are better than others, so you get like these scenes where, oh, I'm instantly engaged with this character because of this actor, right? Willem Dafoe or Michelle Pfeiffer, but I'm not as interested in Josh Gad, right? Just to pick on Josh Gad some more. Or I'll even say the same about Daisy Ridley. I'm not as interested in you
Yeah.
immediately. You're gonna have to act harder to sell me.
Yeah.
And so that's the I guess the flaw in the structure of the film is it becomes repetitive and it becomes like actory. It's like it's very much like, okay, now's the time for you to take the stage.
Right.
And so, you just imagine like in a play, they're going to come down to the lip of the stage and they're
Yeah.
going to
The
deliver this
lights. Yeah.
this thing. Yeah, the lights hit them and Perot's in the background while they talk. And
That's
like,
good. Rub my chin too.
yeah, rub the chin, or he's got that
The
great handlebar
mustache.
mustache. He's just like, yes, and like so that would be like that's how it just feels like a stage play.
Yeah.
And there's nothing here that feels enough like, oh, this is a movie that it needs to be a movie. And
Right.
so anyway, all that said, it's not a bad way to spend a couple of hours, but there's plenty that you could see that would be better. It'd be a better use of your time because again, this isn't going to kill you. It doesn't make you mad, but it's also like you're not going to at the end be like, man, I need to see that again to pick up on the clues.
Oh yeah.
And you're also not going to, which is what a mystery needs to do. I need
Yeah.
to reread that so I can see, oh man, I missed that. And like, this doesn't have those moments.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it's not like, it's not fun enough to watch that you're like, I have to have that on DVD so that I can watch it every day, like, or whatever. And like you don't have that feeling. So, all in all, like those Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock, I've rewatched those episodes multiple times
Yeah.
because they're fun to watch,
Oh man.
regardless of how well structured the mystery is. Some are better than others, but they're fun to watch always. And so here with a mystery that's a little bit lackluster, you need that sense of like fun,
Yeah.
and they just don't capture it. So yeah, I guess I'm going to give this 2 stars. And but again, it's not because it doesn't make you mad. It
Right.
doesn't like ruin your evening, but there's just a lot out there that it's a better use of your time.
Well, it sounds like wasted potential. I mean, you've got Kenneth Branagh and you've got this great genre and this really solid source material and all these great actors, and it sounds like it's not greater than the sum of its parts.
And let me go ahead and throw this in there too. This is not a spoiler, but it's something that the trailer doesn't let on, and I feel like somebody needs to tell you about this. Yeah, Johnny Depp's the one that gets murdered, so he's only in about 5 minutes of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I hardly brought him up in the review because he's hardly in this movie.
Is the murderer Schmamber Schmurd?
Yes,
I needed to make sure I didn't get sued there.
yeah. The murderer's last name is Warner.
This podcast is not an LLC yet.
Right, right. But yeah, man. So
Uh,
yeah, that's basically Murder on the Orient Express. And if you're like me and you really like a mystery, there's plenty out there to watch that's better than this. But if you're like me and you like a mystery, you're also going to be like, okay, fine, didn't
huh.
ruin my evening.
The only thing that's bigger than Kenneth Branagh's mustache is that huntsman spider that I was talking about.
We had to come back to that, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, all right. So we got some time. I want to talk to you
Yeah.
about a movie that I watched for the second time. I was watching this with my wife. I thought she would enjoy it. And it is 2012's The Impossible. So this was directed by J.A. Bayona. It calls it an English speaking Spanish film.
Okay.
In the yeah, Spanish disaster drama film. So the production, I guess, was, yeah, Apache's Entertainment, Telecinco Cinema, and I think it must have been bought by Summit and Warner Brothers. I'm actually curious about that. Sorry, now I really care. I want, yeah, release the film. Distribution rights were pre-bought by Summit. Was this at a festival? It must have been. Sorry, I didn't care about that until I double thought about that, and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
that's kind of cool. Anyways, so it's that film about the 2004 tsunami in Thailand that stars Naomi Watts, Ewan McGregor, and a young Tom Holland is in this film. So that's weird.
Yeah.
And I double checked. We didn't talk about this on the show, even though I'd seen it, and I saw it like recently, like within the last year or so. So we watched it again, and I still love it. It's
Hmm.
4-star film for me as well.
Sweet.
So if people weren't old enough to be like watching the news or something or at the time, this was on December 26th, 2004. This big tsunami hit Thailand, and um, it was devastating. There's video of it out there you can look at, and yeah, it was. Let's see, where exactly were they? They were in. Well, they were in. Oh, geez, the film takes place in a specific part of Thailand, but big area. Affected by this. Yeah, the Burma plate and the Indian plate. It was a mega undersea mega thrust earthquake, which is basically when the plates tsunamis can be caused by any number of things, a volcanic explosion. This was a mega thrust earthquake where the plates are shoving against each other, and then it
Hmm.
just slips and shoves the other one up. And what a tsunami
Yeah.
is that's a lot of water that
Yep.
is suddenly displaced, because
Displaced.
it's not silly to not know how does a tsunami even like what how does the tsunami even happen. It's like
Yeah.
a gigantic piece of the planet moves
Yep.
upward
Yep.
a mile in like an instant or whatever it
Yeah.
is, like even 1,000 feet, I don't know. Lots of water goes up, and then it
Hmm.
has to go that way, and it goes that way until it hits land, and then it
Yep.
kills lots of people and floods and devastates. Go on YouTube. There are plenty of footage of of Asian countries and Indian countries being hit by tsunamis. It's scary.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's mesmerizing to look at. I've watched several of them. I mean, it's crazy in like this macabre way. Like, oh my god, I can't believe this actually happens out there.
Yeah.
It's anyway. So there's a lot of that sort of spectacle in the film. I mean, you see the wave hit, and it's a very well done, horrific portrayal of what it would
Hmm.
be like. I mean, they don't shy away. Like you've got undersea debris. You've got horrible puncture wounds and gaping flesh wounds in the main characters, and infections, and dead bodies just floating everywhere, dead animals. It's horrible. Let's see what they say here. They said the tsunami was recreated with a mixture of digital effects and real water surges, filmed in slow motion, created in a water tank in Spain using miniatures that were destroyed by a huge wave. Bayona committed to working with real water rather than computer-generated wave because he wanted the story to be authentic. The water looks great. This meant Watts and Holland spent 5 weeks filming physically and psychologically demanding scenes in a massive water tank. Holland, aged 14 at the time of filming, later described it as a scary environment. You can imagine how tiring and brutal... Oh, hi, buddy.
I need your help.
With what?
Sadie hit me.
What?
By my face.
Oh, buddy. All right. Can you try to go back to sleep? I'll talk to her in a minute, okay?
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Go back to sleep quiet, okay? Don't wake your brother. That scared the Jesus out of me. I did not know he was right there.
I was gonna say something, but I thought it was more funny to let it play out.
That's okay. Speaking of, my son's wearing Spider-Man pajamas. I'm talking about Tom Holland, who is now Spider-Man. He says you can imagine how tiring and brutal that was. I mean, it's the cast is great. Ewan McGregor is great in this film. Naomi Watts this was her second Academy Award nomination was for this film. She's tremendous in it. Tom Holland is great. The other two kids who play the other two little boys who play the other siblings are great. And there's a whole host of like day players in here that are also great. This film thrives on not only showing you this horrible disaster, but instead of fixating on how this disaster ruins some white people's vacation, it focuses on the community of Thailand. There's a couple of scenes that really show like how the locals really came in and helped and saved. Well, not, I want to say saved everybody, but what am I trying to say? The priority was helping the tourists. It's down here somewhere in the critical response, because there was some criticism of the film that it was whitewashed because the woman who's this story is based on, Maria Belon, is Spanish and her family is Spanish. Her husband's name is Enrique. And I don't know if Ewan McGregor's name is ever actually said in the film. They might have changed it to something else, but they changed the last name to Bennett in here. It's still Maria, but it's Maria Bennett because Naomi Watts is playing her. Here's the thing, though. Maria Belon is she has a story by credit here because she worked with the screenwriter Sergio G. Sanchez to make sure that this was portrayed the way that it happened to her. She picked Naomi Watts to play her, because she loved 21 Grams so much. She said she's her favorite actress. I want Naomi Watts to play me. And so she signed off on the quote-unquote whitewashing of this. Her contention was basically like, it's not really important what nationality this main character is because it's not about this one family. It's starring this one family, but there's a whole lot of focus given to the totality of this entire area being affected by this. People from tourists from other countries, other kids, other families, the local population, people who lost their livelihoods. But the response from the victims. So Simon Jenkins, who was a British survivor, was telling The Guardian that he thought it was incredibly accurate, beautifully accurate to his experience. He said, had this film been purely about the tale of a Western middle-class family's ruined holiday, I would have agreed with the backlash. For me, it was the exact opposite. Rather than concentrating on the privileged white visitors, the film portrayed the profound sense of community and unity that I experienced in Thailand, with this family at the center of it. It was the Thai people who waded through the settled water after the first wave had struck to help individuals and families. The Thai people had just lost everything, homes, businesses, families, yet their instinct was to help the tourists. And that's showcased. And that's one of the not only the performances and will I ever see, they get split up. The cast spends most of the film apart. They don't know if they're all dead, who's alive or whatever. There's just the groups that are there, and they don't know what's happening with the other groups. And there's a lot of uncertainty about, certain characters maybe or maybe not surviving the film. And, so of course those are heart-wrenching scenes, but you have like the first scene that makes me like, that moved me to tears was like this village, helps Naomi Watts, pretty much gets her stabilized while this truck comes to take her to a hospital. And they literally like give her the shirt off their backs, and I'm just sitting there like, what's up?
Yeah.
Buddy?
I'm still thirsty.
Where's your water bottle?
My papa told water got lost.
Okay, here. It's probably behind your pillow, but why don't you take this? Hold on. Take that, okay? Good night. Yeah, there's a few scenes like that in there where it's just people helping people, and it's just a really, really, really emotional, well done movie. And I mean, again, like it's not. I mean, the big spectacle is this horrible disaster, but it's done really well. It's appropriately scary, but it's not like sensationalized. And these actors are putting it all out there, and it's really great. So this is on Netflix. You can watch it right now.
Sweet.
And man, I do recommend it. I think it's a 4-star film for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We got some time.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about one of your other movies?
Sure. You have an opinion?
What was the Standing Up, Falling Down?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that one.
Let me pull it up here on IMDb.
I saw Billy Crystal was in this movie.
Yes.
Is he the standing up person or the falling down person?
You'll have to watch and see.
Oh.
So Standing Up, Falling Down is a film that was released in 2019, although I think it kind of hit wider in 2020, but at the beginning of 2020, pre-COVID, because I think this hit around the same time that Ben Schwartz was in Sonic the Hedgehog, and so it was like he had two things going at the same time. So the film stars Ben Schwartz and Billy Crystal and a bunch of other people, but they're the only two that really matter. It is essentially a dual protagonist film, although really, I guess, Ben Schwartz is the main. So Ben Schwartz plays an out-of-work stand-up comic who had moved out to Los Angeles and failed and is now moving back home to live with his parents and hopefully find a job and do something back home. And what he ends up doing is going to the dentist. And his dentist, played by Billy Crystal, is a strange, quirky man that he begins a friendship with. And so Billy Crystal is a widower who is sort of separated from his son because of his past behavior, Billy Crystal's past behavior. And so he is attempting to reconcile with his son, all the while kind of forging this new father-son-ish relationship with Ben Schwartz, who is in desperate need of kind of a father figure. And so that's sort of the basic premise here. The film, there's not a whole lot to say about this film, but I'm going to give it 3 stars. Again, it's not a great film, but it's far from being a bad film. It's fine. And I think it's a good way to spend a couple of hours, or an hour and a half, but it's, it's ultimately kind of a, kind of forgettable maybe. But Ben Schwartz does really well in the role. He is likable and charming, and I really like Ben Schwartz. I've liked him since he was on Parks and Rec, and he played a character named John Ralphio, and he's eccentric and weird and whatnot on that show. And so I just kind of like love watching Ben Schwartz be crazy. And if you've ever seen his improv show, which is on Netflix as well, Middleditch and Schwartz, it's him and Thomas Middleditch, and they go to a place and they just take a cue from the audience, like, somebody give me a profession, and like, where are you going? And like that sort of thing. And then they create this like hour-long sketch comedy that's all improv from a few prompts from the audience. And it's really great, and it showcases his and their improv ability. Here, that's not really on display. This feels very much like it is a script that was given to him, and that's fine. I'm sure Parks and Rec was that way too, but I also think that there's some something to be said for giving a great improv performer freedom on a set to do and say whatever comes to their mind. Maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't use those takes. Or maybe they did, and it just blends so well I couldn't tell. But you're not going to really get that itch scratched if you're really looking for Ben Schwartz's like improv ability. Billy Crystal, always great, always charming. Plays a very different role in this film. He's kind of an alcoholic, and like I said, he's had some trouble in the past. Billy Crystal. There you go. That's not bad. And
maybe I should be standing up.
There you go. You should be standing up, and I'll be falling
down.
And so Billy Crystal, it's just a different role for him. You know, we're used to kind of seeing him as like this likable, you know, goofy guy kind of guy, and this he's a little harder to like, maybe, but still not like you wouldn't dislike him. He's just, you know, rough around the edges in this, and it's kind of an interesting career move for him. Now, I heard him talk about this. Billy Crystal was offered this film, and he picked Ben Schwartz. He was like, "I'll only do it if Ben will do it with me." They never met, never worked together. He just admired Ben's abilities, and so they offered it to him. And I'm sure Ben Schwartz is like, "I get to work with who? Okay, yeah, sure."
Yeah.
And so it is, like I said, it's really their story, and it's in a weird way a coming of age story for a guy in his 30s and a guy that is in his, what's Billy Crystal now? 60s, 70s?
Yeah, he's got to be 70
70s?
at this point. Yeah.
So it's like a coming of age story for these two guys, and it's a buddy movie, and it is fun. But ultimately, like I said, it's a little bit forgettable. I think it would have benefited from a different tone. The tone they struck here is something that was a little bit it's dramatic, and it's played straight for the most part. You know, like there's some romantic beats here and that sort of thing. I think it would have been better served as something a little more irreverent and something a little more playful, because I think you have these two actors who are more than capable of being playful and making it like a tongue-in-cheek drama rather than just a straight drama. And so I would have liked to have seen that. But again, you know, I think the fact that it's played straight mostly, and that they don't really get to showcase their unique abilities, like the reason you would cast Billy Crystal or the reason you would cast Ben Schwartz, those aren't really on display here. So Standing Up, Falling Down, as far as I know, it's not streaming anywhere. But you know, if you find it at a Redbox or something, and you have a free rental or something, and you're a fan of either one of those two guys, I'd say check it out. Otherwise, it is probably a skip it. You know, it's 3 stars. It's fine. There's better ways to spend your time. And unlike something like Murder on the Orient Express, where I would say like, oh, if you really like whodunits, like you'll get something out of it. Like this, unless you're a big Billy Crystal or Ben Schwartz fan, you're probably not going to get anything out of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 stars. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm sort of. I think Billy Crystal's entertaining. I just don't know how into him I am as like a draw to watch a movie. But yeah, that's probably before my time. Like City Slickers, like people like love City Slickers, but it's like it's just before my time, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
And that makes sense. I mean, to be honest, like when I think about Billy Crystal, the thing I think about is like Oscar host, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind, not leading man of a comedy film.
Yeah. I think of,
although he is that.
Tremendous Showman,
Yes.
or like Miracle Max and The Princess Bride, but I don't
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
or obviously like Mike Wazowski if you
Sure.
if you love the Pixar movies, but like, yeah, I'm with you. Like the first thing I think of is him in a tuxedo,
Yeah, yeah.
like to like trying desperately to keep the Oscars relevant
Right,
and
exactly.
being paid handsomely for it, I imagine.
Very handsomely.
I'm happy to
Yeah,
take your money.
sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little bit of like a character actor, right?
Yeah.
Like you would put him in a supporting role,
Yeah.
but I don't know that like I can't think of anything recent where he's played a lead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Like Miracle Max, right? Like he's just a supporting role. He's
Yeah.
there. He chews the scenery for a scene, and he's
Yeah.
done. And it's fantastic, and it works well, and it's super memorable. And I think those are the roles that are best suited to him and to his talents. And that's not to like poo poo on his talents, but because there's something like When Harry Met Sally, which is fantastic,
Yeah.
where he's a lead. So he certainly has it in him. He just needs the right material, and it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're gonna put this one to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of going to bed, my children appear to be out of bed, so I need to go
Wrangle them up.
see to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, next week. It's pretty soon here. Geez. I mean, it's basically December now, and we're gonna be having pretty soon. The Mandalorian is gonna be finished in a couple weeks.
Yep.
And then we've probably got WandaVision somewhere in here.
Yeah.
And
somewhere.
some movies also dropping on streaming platforms that we'll be able to see. So this is about to be an interesting few weeks on the show.
Yeah, I'd say
for
you guys
sure.
can definitely look forward to Wonder Woman
Yes.
review. You can look forward to
Soul.
Soul.
Yep.
And yeah, we should talk about Mandalorian when it all wraps up.
Yeah.
So there's some big stuff coming up.
We finally caught up on The Mandalorian. We put it on hold to watch The Crown, and so then
Yeah.
we caught up on it Sunday night, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a long
I caught
episode.
up on it yesterday.
Oh,
So yeah.
Okay, so we're on the same place. Okay.
Oh
Cool.
wait, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Sunday night was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. My days are all whatever.
Sunday night's a lot sooner if you are a Patreon listener.
It's true.
Hearing the show commercial free earlier than the other people on the regular podcast platforms with the commercials. So you can go over to patreon.com/HooperCast, look at that $3 a month price tier, which is super cheap, super reasonable, we think, if you want to support the show and listen to less advertising in general for it as well. And you get that exclusive RSS feed. Today I went and followed another channel on Patreon, and it was like, here's that sweet RSS feed. Here you go, buddy. And I was like, oh, I clicked on it.
Sweet.
And you know what? Actually, they did a thing, which I was like, I wonder if because I thought we should do this, and we haven't done it yet. I was like, I wonder if they'd do this thing. What they did was you open that feed, and it's that logo, but it says Patreon on it. And I was like, oh, exclusive.
There you go.
So look forward to very soon to a HooperCast logo with Patreon written on it for only the people who subscribe to the secret exclusive RSS feed that Patreon gives you when you subscribe to that price tier, which for us is $3 a month. So okie dokie. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for choosing to listen to the show, and definitely thanks if you are supporting the show in any of those ways in general. We will see you next week, talking about more movies and gray hairs in my beard.
Maybe that you've pulled one, and it's just going to be like that whole side of your face is going to be gray.
Yeah, it did like the Santa Claus. Like I shave it and like just like cauliflower.
Yep.
Just a cauliflower stump.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. You should definitely tune in and see if that's the case.
Yes.
To the video tier. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.